Fuck it. We're doing it live. We're doing it live. This fucking thing sucks. Hello and welcome to another episode of With Enough Prep Time. I'm your host, the Nerd Man, and today we're talking about everybody's mad. Everybody's angry. Yeah, like people are really pissed. And Chris Terrio not too happy with Warner Brothers. So we're going to go through an article today. I was thinking maybe I'll read it first, but then I decided, you know what? I like doing these things kind of live and just reacting with you guys and feeling the energy as I'm discovering, new revelations about this hellish production of Justice League that happened. So I've only read a few kind of quotes from this article and I don't know much about it, but I'm going to try and cut it off. At least I don't want to go more than, I don't want to go more than 40 minutes on this, but rest assured, if I go 40 minutes, 45 minutes, then I will do a part 2 to finish off the article, or perhaps by then I'm going to just read the whole article but as much as possible, I'm going to try and react to everything. And I'm going to try and be natural with this. I'm not just going to try and get to the end. I'm going to read and digest and take this in, everything, from beginning to end. I don't know if I'll do a part 2 or I'll cut it into segments. But please, if you are watching, please give me a high five, smash that like button, which will help my algorithm a little bit there. But yeah, as I said, I'm either gonna, cut off at about 45 minutes and do my introduction again and do a part 2, if it has to be part 3. But I'm gonna go all the way with this one, all the way, baby. And I want to start off with something, because I know that it's referenced here. It's actually referenced.
The ultimate thing about being human. What would
It's referenced in the article here, so I'm going to react to that bit. So I just want to get this over and done with. So something that Zack Snyder said about the title, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
What is the ultimate thing about being human? What would the ultimate thing you face is your mortality. And that's a thing that I think is really, cool about this.
Oh, it's
cool.
The
studio was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, but the movie's, how about I call the movie Dawn of Justice?
Right.
They're like, okay. Right. I like what you're doing.
But
I see what you're doing.
Yeah, ruining the DCEU. That is the point where the DCEU collapsed, by the way. That Dawn of Justice, the Batman v Superman, the whole thing was stupid. He should have never made himself architect. He put a target on his back by doing that. Because he made himself architect of the DCEU. He could have easily said, look, let me focus on Superman, or let me focus on Batman, because I've always wanted to do a Batman movie. And why don't you get some guys together to put, to direct, like a Wonder Woman movie and maybe at least a Flash and a Wonder Woman movie. So we've got like 4 of the Justice League, and then we launch straight into a Justice League movie. But no, not Zack. So I think that's really, really, if you want to know where the DCEU, collapsed, a lot of people try and say it's not Zack Snyder, but I don't agree. I want to thank a shout out to Akansha for sending me that video link. So just before I go on finally to this article, I want to just mention this before I go, because I think this might come up as well. Something about Jeff Johns that Ben Affleck says. So I just want to I want it here as a as a reminder, so that when we get into these topics, that I can address them, with you having some kind of knowledge.
So that's out there as an option.
Jeff Johns is a brilliant guy. I consider him to be the most valued resource on all things, comic book. And every time I like something in a comic, I always mention it. He goes, "Oh yeah, I wrote that." So after a while, now I just think he's bull. And he says he wrote everything. He and I are working together on something, and I really am excited about it. And I love him. He's the best.
So there you go. That was Ben Affleck talking about writing the Batman. So, all right, here we go. This is the big one. This is absolutely the big one. So this is absolutely the big one, and we're going to be, I don't know what it says. This is Chris Terrio, writer of the Batman v Superman and the Justice League. Now, maybe some of you are here, because you want to hear me hate on Chris Terrio. So I'm going to be telling you my opinions of Chris Terrio as we go along. But I have complicated feelings for Chris Terrio. So we'll find out as we go along what I think about as we react to the article, which says, oh, wow, what an article. What a title for an article. Justice League screenwriter Chris Terrio is super pissed off. The Argo Oscar winner is tired of being hated by the haters, and he despises what happened to his DC films too. Wow. Wow. Well, I've got to say, I kind of agree with the guy, because to me, Man of Steel may be a more linear film. It may even be a more entertaining film than Batman v Superman. But in terms of the writing and the dialogue and the script, I would say Justice League and Batman v Superman are way superior. And even in terms of the story, the messiness of the story, the plot holes and stuff like that I found in Batman v Superman as opposed to Justice League, we have to remember that Chris Terrio actually came onto Batman v Superman after David Goyer had written it. David Goyer, who seems to be the hero of all these people, just because he wrote Batman Begins, because he basically stole ideas from graphic novels that already existed and wrote Batman Begins. And to be fair, it's a good script. But he wrote Blade as well. I'll give him that. But he's the writer of Ghost Rider. He's the writer of Ghost Rider 2. He's the writer of the Blade 2, 3, all these messy, terrible movies. And Chris Terrio is an Oscar-winning screenwriter, and you can tell by the way he writes these big blockbusters. So I know some people hate on Chris Terrio. I've never thought that in terms of the quality of the films, Batman v Superman and Justice League, that it was Chris Terrio's fault. I've always thought that it was Zack Snyder being misguided about his portrayal of some of the characters and what he wanted Chris Terrio to write. And then also, above and beyond that, that I don't blame Zack Snyder in a way, because I think that a lot of the real fundamental story problems, because the directing is excellent in terms of the visual directing in Zack Snyder's movies. So a lot of the things that are bad about it really come down to the scripts. And in terms of the scripts, the common denominator in the two movies that I think are the most problematic of Zack Snyder's movies, which is Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, David Goyer is, I think, the big issue there. I think he had the big problems. And you even see that going back a little bit to The Dark Knight Rises. So The Dark Knight Rises is pretty much quite a good film, but It has some major flaws, major plot holes. And again, you have David Goyer connected with that. So anyway, let's go into this article now. So Chris Terrio is not pulling his punches anymore. For 5 years, the Oscar-winning screenwriter of Argo kept his mouth shut about his work on DC films Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Justice League. Even as scorn from critics and fans exasperated already painful behind-the-scenes memories. Worst of all, he agreed with many of their complaints. Wow! He described the film that Warner Brothers released to the theaters in 2016 and 2017 as incoherent misfires undermined by corporate meddling, poor franchise planning, and tone-deaf decisions that prioritize costly VFX sequences over coherent storytelling. Terrio believes that Zack Snyder's director's cuts of both movies are much stronger. Very true. If still imperfect movies, an overall vindication of their work together. I bet you I know he really wants to throw Zack Snyder under the bus, but he likes him too much. He knows that Zack Snyder influenced him to make some stupid decisions writing-wise, in terms of, what he was doing with Superman. But we'll go into that later. In an exclusive, wide-ranging interview, the screenwriter said the hashtag Snyder Cut of Justice League, recently released as a 4-hour-plus event on HBO Max, righted a kind of cinematic wrong perpetrated by studio leadership that has now almost entirely moved on from Warner Brothers. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the 2017 theatrical cut was an act of vandalism, Terrio said. Zack may be too much of a gentleman to say that, but I'm not. Well, look, Chris Terrio, to be fair, it's the studio's fucking money, all right? And they can put out whatever product they want. They obviously suffered from it. It was a horrible mistake on their part, but it is their money. They invest it. It's their money. You know your job. You know what your job is. You know the business. There have been movies that have been hacked to shit that never, ever see the light of day in terms of, people getting director's cuts and all of this kind of stuff coming out later. You know the business. That's what studios do. They say, they react to audiences. They react, and it's stupid. But I think this is I can understand as an artist being upset and angry at all of these kind of things, but it's really the studio invested the money. They get to do what they want. So I've never really understood this argument that, somehow we shouldn't get in the way of the artist and, we should always let the artist put out there. Yes, we should, ideally, but they're a money-making organization, so they're looking at what they think is going to make money and what's going to be most profitable. So they're putting out the product that's going to be most profitable. And Batman v Superman underperformed. Man of Steel underperformed. They didn't want Justice League to underperform. So if your common denominator is certain things that critics are talking about, and that these critics on Rotten Tomatoes are absolutely full of shit, and they were criticizing Man of Steel and Batman v Superman mostly, for the most part, for the absolute wrong things, but the studio listened to them, and what they identified as the problem was this dark tone, and they came in and they butchered Zack Snyder's movie. But again, it is their right to do that. I'm sorry. So yeah, it was kind of, I mean, you're going on like it's a great piece of art, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and it is a fantastic movie for a comic book movie. For a comic book movie, I would put it really, really high up there. That being said, it's not like they vandalized, the Mona Lisa or something like that. I mean, it's just a big budget action movie. in the end of the day, that they were trying to make more entertaining and trying to make it more, you know, make it more appealing to a broader audience than Zack Snyder's movies. And again, I can't put this more, you know, make this more clear. The fact that they hacked up Zack Snyder's Justice League movie kind of is Zack Snyder's fault. He was told after Man of Steel by the fans, you know, not forget the critics. I mean, by fans and everything. You're making Superman too dark. You're going down this route that doesn't suit Superman as a character. You're doing all of this stuff. And then he doubles down on that in BVS, and he does the same thing to Batman in BVS, creating a character that people didn't recognize. He was doing, let me put it this way, he was putting out deconstructions of the characters before he constructed them. And the fans warned him, you know, in terms of their reaction to Man of Steel, that this is what was happening. You were dividing audiences by presenting deconstructions of the characters before you've actually presented a construction. So now he goes into Justice League, and yeah, I believe the movie's good. I like the movie. I don't believe the deconstruction is as heavy as it was in Batman v Superman and Man of Steel. I think he's doing less deconstructive versions of the characters, and he's just doing the Justice League basically in the Justice League movie. So they're presented like they are in the comics for the most part. There's some things that are still problematic. And when he did that in the Justice League film, and he presented the characters as, you know, people recognize them as they read them in the comics, people loved it. And when it had a little bit more heart and emotion, and, you know, people loved it. So, you know, there are still some naysayers to Zack Snyder's Justice League. But again, those two former movies that he did before, Man of Steel, okay, fine. Man of Steel was divisive. Fine, you know, whatever. We can forgive you. You know, sometimes people have a bad day. Sometimes people take a swing and a miss. There were good things about Man of Steel as well. So, you know, we'll forgive you. But next time, hey, can we make Superman a bit lighter? You got him to the end of the movie. You know, let's get him a bit more hopeful. Let's move past the deconstruction. But no, not Zack Snyder. Not fucking Zack Snyder. No, what I'm going to do is make him a mopey asshole for the whole movie and then kill him at the end of it. So, of course, you know, when people reacted to that and reacted badly to that and reacted badly to the Batman murderer, the studio was like, look, this movie should have made $1 billion easy. It made $400 million in its opening weekend, and then had a huge, you know, 80% off the cliff, decline in the second weekend. Only managed to make, you know, a few hundred, some tens of millions more than a solo Wonder Woman movie. So again, the confidence wasn't going to be high in the Justice League movie, and they must have been looking at that thing with a bunch of skepticism. And I have to just give that context before I move on, because, you know, act of vandalism, you know, I'll say the act of vandalism was, you know, really Zack Snyder's fucking movies in the beginning. That was the act of vandalism, that, you know, you take a cherished hero like Superman and you drag him through the fucking mud for 2 movies, and you're talking about how it was an act of vandalism against Justice League. Well, now Zack Snyder knows how it feels when you take a huge comic character that's much beloved and you drag him through the mud and make him, you know, Park Kent, a guy who tells, you know, his son that maybe kids should die. That's an act of vandalism. That's an act of cultural vandalism. So maybe Zack Snyder, you can understand how it feels a little bit when they hacked your movie to shit. I'm sorry to say this. And this, again, I like the Snyder Cut. So that's just how I feel about it. Anyway, guys, please do me a favor. Give me a high five, smash that like button if you're liking the content. But anyway, so let's go on and talk about this. I can't help ranting when it comes to Zack Snyder. I'm so sorry. I want to just kind of read the shit and get through it, but there are some things, you know. So Terrio first joined the DC universe to, you know what? I'm gonna stick to the. No, I can't do that. Terrio first joined the DC universe to rewrite an existing Batman v Superman script because its Batman actor, the director of Argo, had qualms about the project. I think the studio brought me in to appease Ben Affleck because they thought, okay, well, we have this movie star who is reluctant about doing this, so why don't we bring in this guy? That's incredible to me. That statement is incredible to me because who the fuck wanted Ben Affleck to play Batman at that time? Okay, there's loads of Ben Affleck Batman fans now, but who really wanted Ben Affleck to be Batman? I don't think anyone in the world wanted Ben Affleck to be Batman. So if he was reluctant about joining the project, get rid of him. You don't need to bring on a new writer. But anyway, luckily Ben Affleck did stay because he was quite a good Batman. I'm happy he's gone as Batman because I've never really been able to get over the fact of Ben Affleck as Batman. But I must admit, he's good. He's still not as good as Keaton. He's not as good as Christian Bale. But he's a good Batman. I just think there could be better. That's my own personal opinion. I even think that he could have played another character, not Batman, but certainly even in the movie we saw, Batman v Superman, I could see better people doing the role than Ben Affleck, to be quite honest. With the same lines, the same character, I just see that there could be another individual that may have done that better. But that's just me. I'm not a huge Ben Affleck fan when it comes to the acting. But Terrio, I think, improved the script. So I'm glad that they brought Terrio, into the DCU, although he's not going to be working there any longer. So the screenwriter was frank about trying to make sense of the film's warring heroes, turning their fight into a metaphor for a divided America while attempting to fix elements he too found nonsensical or offensive. Studio officials then demanded that 30 minutes be removed from the theatrical cut, most likely because shorter runtimes mean more daily screenings, often resulting in higher box office earnings. Terrio said the act sabotaged the narrative. If you took 30 minutes out of Argo, as they were from Batman Superman, it would make zero sense at all. Critics would say, what a lazy screenplay, because the characters don't have motivations and it's not coherent, Terrio said, and I would agree with them. See, again, though, let's make this clear. I like Batman v Superman, and I like some of the elements of the story, but the weakest element is the motivations of the characters to even fight each other. And I'm sorry, the 30 minutes that are added to Batman v Superman do not make a single shred of difference. I'm one of those rare creatures who actually like the theatrical cut, and I could follow beat for beat what was happening. I knew in the beginning that when the people died in the desert, that clearly it was Superman that was somehow being, he was somehow being framed for the deaths of the soldiers and the terrorists in the desert. So that made sense to me. But everyone critics were saying they were confused. They didn't know what was happening. Why, and they had to physically be shown the terrorists being burnt to death in the desert, even though they were riddled with bullets. So anyway, look, I'm not going to go into it, but basically this element of him saying the motivations made zero sense. They made the motivation for Superman to fight Batman and even Batman to fight Superman in the 3-hour cut is just as ludicrous as in the 2.5 hour cut. The stuff I like about Batman v Superman is some of the philosophical and mythical elements of the storytelling. And to be quite frank, you know, I was quite ready to see Superman. You know, I'd already seen what Zack Snyder had done with Superman before, and then I'd been hearing news at the time when Batman v Superman was coming out that Superman was barely in the movie. So I was already ready for Superman to be shit on. So when I saw it, it didn't shock me as much. It had prepared me, unlike Man of Steel, for me to see my favorite superhero of all time completely trashed in a movie. And so because I was prepared, it kind of mitigated the impact of actually seeing Superman dragged through the mud for another movie. And I was able to just enjoy the cool, badass action with Batman. I was able to enjoy Wonder Woman. I thought she was kick-ass in the movie. Seeing Wonder Woman for the first time on big screen, seeing the Trinity together for the first time on the big screen, the visual element that Zack Snyder always brings to his movies that are really, really cool. I've always loved it. Cool, his favorite word, because it looked cool. But his movies do look amazing. They look like graphic novels brought to life. I love the sprawling, epic nature of that film. So, and I thought the writing was decent in the film as well in terms of the actual dialogue. I thought it was a huge improvement on Man of Steel. That being said, with all that being said, the motivations of Batman v Superman, the central conflict of the movie, was the worst part of the whole fucking movie. It made no sense. So anyway, let's go on. So I don't see what he's talking about, you know, taking 30 minutes out, you know, made any difference. Even the title Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice was a disaster, he said, that primed audiences to roll their eyes at the film well before its release. Well, that's why I brought up this little tidbit here that a good friend of mine sent me on Twitter. I almost want to play it again because you know, he's blaming the studio for calling it Batman v Superman, but it seems to me that that it is Zack Snyder is taking full Zack Snyder's taking full responsibility, basically. Yeah, so I'm kind of confused about that by Chris Terrio there. Zack, is he criticizing Zack Snyder, his buddy, who he said the studio locked? Because it seems to me like that's a kind of critique of him. Did he know that Zack Snyder came up with the title? Let's hear this again.
Thing about being human. What was the ultimate thing you face? What is the ultimate thing about being human?
Oh, I've got some messages. Oh, sorry. Let me just play that all through fully.
What is the ultimate thing about being human? What was the ultimate thing you face is your mortality, and that's the thing that I think is really, you know, cool.
Cool. Everything's
the
cool.
studio was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, but the movie's, how about I call the movie Dawn of Justice?
Right.
They're like, okay. Right. I like what you're doing.
But I mean,
I see what you're doing. Like, what is the ultimate thing about being?
I don't know. I kind of like Snyder. Nice about him, but yeah. Again, I'm not sure. You know, what his take on that would be, but certainly it seems very weird to me that he's now criticizing of the movie. There seems to be a little bit of hypocrisy on Chris Terrier's part. A lot of so far Oh, so seems to be something that I don't really agree with what he's saying. So let me see if I can get back to the part. Divided America, yeah. Okay. So Terrio hoped Justice League would be a better experience. He was very wrong. After watching Josh Whedon's version, oh my God, he must have threw up. After watching Josh Whedon's version of the film, Terrio was so disgusted that he explored taking his name off the movie. Especially galling to him was the sidelining of Ray Fisher's tragic hero Cyborg, whose arc the actor himself had helped craft. Okay, I can agree with this, but again, you've got a 2-hour movie, and it's really about the Justice League. And let's face it, that whole arc in the movie was fucking great, but it should have been in a Cyborg movie. Let's be real about it. That shit should have been in the Cyborg movie. They should have rolled the dice and just made a Cyborg movie for 150 million, $100 million or something like that. Just seeing maybe it might play to audiences. You never know. And if they had have rolled the dice, made a fucking Cyborg movie, then you don't have to waste, a whole, I don't know how many minutes doing a Cyborg origin in the right in the center, slap bang in the middle of a Justice League movie. And I'm sorry, I don't come to Justice League as good as it was. And I've said this before. I was almost moved to tears by Ray Fisher's performance at a couple of moments in the film. As good as it was, I'm sorry, I would have rather seen Superman. Superman was sidelined for the whole fucking movie. He's on the bench for the whole movie. I would have preferred that time spent on a little bit of Superman. Maybe even a Green Lantern, or another action scene with Wonder Woman, or fuck Aquaman. I don't care about him either. So I want to see, when I go to a Justice League movie, I want to see Green Lantern. I want to see The Flash. I want to see Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. And I'd even like to see a little bit of Martian Manhunter. The rest for me is just, fluff on the side. So, it's too bad it was cut out. But I'll say this, that I think that Chris Terrio should have taken his name off the script because it was that different. It was a completely different film. So Fisher has been outspoken for months about his experience making Justice League following years of silence. Now Terrio's doing the same. He said he bottled up his feelings about the theatrical cuts to avoid hurting their casts and crews. Now that Snyder and Terrio's preferred versions of the films are available to the public, the screenwriter is finally opening up about how it went wrong in the first place. Wow. So here comes the interview. So Zack Snyder's Justice League is now out in the world. How do you feel about it? Chris Terrio: I'm so happy and relieved that all these thousands of artists and craft people all over the world finally can have their work seen by the public, and all the work that Zack and the actors put into this can now be seen. It's sort of a gift that we got from HBO Max because it wouldn't have happened a few years ago. Okay. Fair enough. Let me just see what everyone has to say here. So don't think that that's fair to say. It's Zack's vision. He reads the comics. He just wants to dive deeper into the characters. Like or hate his vision, it's his vision, and it shouldn't be messed with. I'm not saying that I think that his vision should be tampered with, Mike. That's not what I'm saying. I think you've missed my point. I'm saying the studio, right, has a right to actually do what they want with the film because it's their film. They sign a contract. Zack Snyder, Chris Terrio, all of the actors, they sign contracts the studio, has final cut, unless they've signed a contract where they've given where the studio has given the director final cut, then really they have nothing. These actors and stuff have nothing they can say. They've been paid millions to do this. Zack Snyder is a very wealthy, rich man, not deserving of much of our pity, to be honest. His movie got ruined, and I feel upset for him in terms of that. It will be an awful blow to happen. But then don't sign a contract, don't work, make indie movies. If you want to do that and you don't want your film tampered with, and you don't want make low budget indie movies where, they're gambling on it anyway. That's the only thing you can do. You can't make big budget $300 million movies and expect studios to just be like, oh, I'll just give $300 million away and this isn't Make-A-Wish. It does. You don't get to just decide like, oh, I want to make this hugely expensive film, and I'm gonna I'm gonna just expect to force my will onto this studio, who has that, they're responsible. They've got a responsibility to a lot of people. They've got responsibility to investors, people who invested money into this. Invested lots and lots of money into this whole thing. So they've got a real it's a balancing act. They've got to make a lot of profit on a $300 million budget. You should be making upwards of $1 billion, to cover the investment. So yes, I'm sorry, I just can't completely agree with this statement. Love it or hate it, his vision shouldn't be messed with. If he doesn't want his vision messed with, then he has to pony up the money. Ask Zack Snyder to put $300 million into a movie and not mess with it. So I see what you're saying, and I think it's unfortunate, and it's never nice when that happens. But again, when you're doing art by committee, when you're doing art on that kind of scale, and you're expecting billions of dollars back, then you've got to there's some things you have to take in consideration with how much you own your own film. You're not paying for the VFX artists, you're not paying for the actors, you're not paying for the sets, the locations, the travel. You're paying for none of that. Zack Snyder paid for none of that. So you can't just say, like, at least the people who paid for it have to have some say, even if it's just 10% say. You have to say they have some say. So I don't agree with that. So that's what I was saying there, that you have to be realistic about these things. So yeah, shouldn't be tampered with. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go for 5 more minutes with this, and then I'm going to start a part 2 maybe. So can you point at some something specific that you are glad gets a showcase in the new version? William Dafoe's performance in the Aquaman story. Obviously, the character Iris West, played by Kiersey Clements in the Flash sequence, and most centrally Ray Fisher's performance as Cyborg. It was always the heart of the film to me, and just meant so much to me personally, because so much of my heart and life were put into that story. That is the thing about the version of this version of Justice League, that none of it was done cynically or as a money grab or an attempt to sell Happy Meal toys. It was a bit personal for me and Zach, and for many of the actors. Yeah, I agree with that, and you can really see that in the Justice League movie. It was a really great movie. I really loved it, and you can see how personal a story it was. And I agree, William Dafoe's performance was awesome in it for me. I liked him better in Justice League than I did in the Aquaman movie. So is it true that you were banned from the Justice League set? I wouldn't say that I was banned. The studio attitude was, we'll take it from here. I was frankly shocked when I saw the Snyder Cut and saw how much the original script was shot. with some small revisions. They shot the script, and I understand that sometimes that was a battle for Zach. I didn't really get that. How did you feel about the version that Josh Whedon assembled after Zach left the project? When those personal touches were removed from the film in the 2017 version, I was silent because I couldn't really say anything. But of course it hurt. All that remained was a dinosaur skeleton of what had been great, lumbering beast. It might have been a big, unruly beast, and obviously it's 4 hours, and the movie is maximalist and it's operatic. And sure, it's a little crazy, but I think the movie is crazy in the best way. I agree with everything he said there. He was very honest. He talked about, like, obviously this is a ridiculous movie. It's 4 hours long, but there's something very personal about it. It's the personal vision of an artist. And in that sense, it's a very, very moving piece. I think it's my favorite Zack Snyder. I have to watch Watchmen, but I still think Zack Snyder's Justice League is my favorite Zack Snyder movie. So I agree with what he says there. Can we start at the beginning with Zack? You worked on Batman v Superman. Can I assume that was a good experience, at least with him, since you signed on to do another movie? Ben Affleck called me and said that he was working on this film, which was a Superman film in which he was going to play Batman. So he asked if I would read the script and consider doing a rewrite. He asked if I would do some character work. So it was already determined and storyboarded that Batman was going to be trying to kill Superman, and that Batman was going to have gone down a dark road. He was branding criminals, and it was and it had certain dark elements that were non-negotiable and already in the story. See, again, I'm so right about this shit. I'm so on the money. I said that I think the story elements that were in there were basically the character elements was what Chris Terrio got brought in to do, to make the characters pop and be more interesting characters. And you could see that with Batman especially. Obviously, he did a lot for his boy Ben Affleck, and made Batman a really awesome character with really great character moments in the film. And the writing was better. The script, the dialogue was better than Man of Steel, as I've always said. Wonder Woman, even in the little bit she had some great dialogue, some great back and forths with Bruce Wayne. So there were elements to the things that I really liked about BVS. But here you go, all the dark bullshit that didn't really make sense of Batman branding criminals were things that he said were non-negotiable, that he couldn't take out. These were dark elements he couldn't take out. And I just think, and who said it was non-negotiable? Probably Zack Snyder. Unfortunate. So what did Affleck want you to do? My job was to create a story and a tone, really, in which Batman could be that person, and in which two heroes could get to the point where they're fighting to the death. Why would Superman fight Batman to the death? It doesn't make any sense. All of that is so stupid. So what was your approach? I came into thinking the only way that this could work is a fever dream or a revenge tragedy. I thought, how do we create a story in which Bruce Wayne is traumatized by the war of Krypton coming to Earth, and in which he enters into this kind of madness? He becomes Captain Ahab, and he won't listen to saner voices like Alfred, for example, who are just telling him to see reason. He's a man possessed. So the film was dark by nature. As I worked on the movie, it seemed to me that it was a snapshot of what I was feeling on the ground in the country, which maybe didn't become apparent until the madness and division that came about from the last presidency. I thought this superhero movie could be about getting into our worst natures, but then coming out of that into a redemption, and a very good idea, some way of salvaging what was essentially just going to be an action beat 'em up, a mindless action beat 'em up. So I'm gonna stop right here. I think this is a good time to really stop. I want to thank you for joining me. So I'm going to just read this one out just before I go. And I'm going to come back and in a part 2 and do a reading and analysis of the rest. Warner Brothers didn't have a 10% say on BVS. It was supposed to be Man of Steel sequel, but Warner Brothers messed with everything. And then Matt I'm sorry, Aguilon says, I loved seeing Man of Steel fight from Batman's POV. I liked seeing the Man of Steel fight from Batman's POV as well. I thought there were a lot, like, just to finish off, I thought there were really, really good character elements in Batman v Superman. Oh, by the way, give me a high five, smash that like button, please help me with that algorithm there. But I think Batman v Superman had some really good character elements, and it looks like everything I like, the political aspects of Batman v Superman, the philosophical aspects, the character work with the darker element of Batman, even though I think it went too far. I don't think Batman should have been killing. I think he should have been trying to build up to that moment where he's getting more and more brutal until that confrontation with Superman, where you think, oh, could he actually break his rule and kill Superman? That would have been a much more compelling story, that he's on the edge of, you know, maybe he's crippled one guy, or he did brand one guy because he was, you know, some sick murderer of children or so, I don't know. And then he kills some guy who's like so sick that it kind of breaks his spirit. And he nearly kills a guy who was so sick. And the police are like, oh my God, Batman's getting more brutal than he usually does. And then you see like is him going up and up and building up until a point where he may kill Superman, and it's Superman whose hope and inspiration brings him out of this murderous fever dream. And I think that would have been a much more satisfying movie than the one that we got in terms of the reason for their conflict. I think it should have been almost Batman hunting Superman. You know, more than Superman wanting to fight Batman, and then he traps him eventually because he doesn't trust him, and he traps him in something, and you know, there's where the fight kind of you know, goes on from there. But anyway, look, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to definitely do a part 2 to this, so please do look out on this channel. I'm coming back in just a minute, but I want to keep these videos a little bit shorter than I have before. So thanks so much for joining me. Please do comment. I love the comments, and I always will respond to the comments. Smash the like button, give me that high five, and of course subscribe for more you know, for more content. And you know what, I'm gonna see you on the flip side. I love you 3000. All right, peace, guys. Back in a minute.